Up next on End of the Day Beer Review, we're going to be looking at Parkview Porter by Druid Brewing Company out of Tuscaloosa, Alabama, coming in at 9.2% ABV. Check it out. Hi everybody, it's Rich and welcome to End of the Day Beer Review. If you're new here, welcome. And please, if you enjoy the content, hit that like button, subscribe, throw some comments up, really appreciate it. Today, looking at another beer courtesy of Grumpy Grandpa's Garage. This is, and I want to thank him again, I have a bunch of beers that he has gotten to me and I'm going to be reviewing them as the weeks go by. I just haven't gotten to them yet. This is a beer that he sent, and this is Parkview Porter by Druid Brewing Company out of Tuscaloosa, Alabama, which I hope I'm saying that correctly. I went to their website to see what the brewery was about, but the website was a little sparse. There was no sort of backstory, so I know nothing about this particular brewery. And it just says on the can, proudly brewed and packaged for Druid Brewing Company by Straight to Ale. So I've done Straight to Ale, a couple of them, again, courtesy of Grumpy Grandpa's Garage. You should check his channel out. And I've liked what I've come across so far. So, you know, this seems to be a smaller brewery that's sort of working out of their facility, which I'm sort of interested in. Now, this is a porter, so it's not quite as heavy as, let's say, a stout would be, but it's coming in at 9.2% ABV, which is pretty hefty. So I'm sort of interested to see how this is going to pour and how it's going to actually come out. So I am using a stout glass for this because, quite honestly, I didn't know what glass to use for a porter. So it's open. Excuse me, I'm not getting any sort of overwhelming aroma out of the opening of the can, which is nothing, you know, really unusual. Let's see how it pours. Now it pours a nice dark reddish brown. And you know, I normally think the red is just from the camera, but being a porter, I think that's actually legitimately that reddish brown sort of chestnut color is from the beer. Ooh, there's a really nice aroma filling the bar, sort of a roasty, malty type of aroma. And I haven't even put my nose in this, and suddenly it's like, wow, it's right there in your face. Let's see what we get on the nose. Yeah, a lot of malt here. Definitely that good sort of roasty, what I normally associate with a stout, but is here in the porter. Not much of a head, you know, sort of a light tan head if you can see it. And I will say it is definitely clinging to the glass. So this does have some legs to it, which I'm pretty impressed by. You know, I can't quite, I almost want to say there's like, I hope it's not the alcohol that I'm actually smelling, because I'm getting sort of like a little hint of what I would think is like the barrel on a whiskey. You know, not quite bourbon, but definitely that sort of charred aroma. It smells great. In fact, it's got a really nice pronounced nose to it. But again, it sort of smells like that oaky, charred sort of aroma that I normally associate with like a barrel-aged stout or a sort of whiskey. So, I'm really interested. This is a good nose. You know, most important thing, what's it taste like? That's nice. So again, there is that sort of oaky flavor that sort of, again, I still associate this with sort of like a whiskey flavor. There's a certain nuttiness to it. Definitely that sort of dark malt, roasty flavor that I associate. I will tell you this. Initially, this went down really smooth. I did not feel the alcohol, but right when it got to about here, I started to feel the alcohol bloom in my stomach. And you know, in New York right now, it's getting that fall time of year where, you know, it's sort of like getting dark earlier. It's cold, it's rainy. I am not a fall person, by the way. I prefer summer. This is a really nice drink to just sort of like warm you up. So let me try to break it down. On the front of the tongue, I'm getting, again, what I associate with like a nice sort of charred, oaky whiskey flavor. But it's vague. It's not so ill-defined. It's not as defined, that sharpness that you get with like a bourbon or something. So there's sort of that charred, oaky flavor on the front. A nice roastiness as it continues down, down the tongue and towards the back of the throat. And I'm getting what to me is like a very, very gentle bit of bitterness on the back end, sort of like the dark, the bitterness you get from like a really good dark roast coffee. This is very nice. This would be a really good beer to sit back by a fire and sip. And I'll tell you, after that initial alcohol bloom, I'm not getting a lot of alcohol. It goes down remarkably smooth for a 9.2% beer. And a 9.2% beer from a very small brewery. This is very, very impressive as far as the way they've managed to bring the ABV so high without just burning you out as you're drinking it. This is a really, really nice, easy drinking beer, which, I mean, to be honest, at 9.2, if you have more than one of these, you're going to definitely be feeling it. Now, I think this is a really nice, accessible porter. Very drinkable. I mean, I could actually see drinking this, if you didn't know the ABV, I could see drinking this relatively fast. But it would really sort of mess with you as far as impairment goes, because that alcohol is definitely there. Yeah, but this is excellent. This is really good, especially coming from, like I said, what I assume is a very small brewery, because they're brewing out of straight to ales, facility. At least that's what it seems like reading the can. So I got to tell you, if you are in Alabama and you have the opportunity, because I didn't see anything that said they shipped. I don't know if Alabama has a limitation on shipping or whatnot. But Druid City Brewing Company, and in particular their Parkview Porter, is very, very nice. It's not too bitter. It's got a nice, that's what I'm getting. I'm getting just a hint of like a chocolatiness towards the back end of this. Maybe it's not coffee, maybe it's more chocolate, but it's really nice. It's not sweet, it's not cloying. I can't taste the alcohol. I'm not getting that sort of, what I think is terrible. If you can taste the booze in a beer, I tend not to be a fan of that beer. I like the high ABV, don't get me wrong. What I don't like is that you're gonna taste sort of that ethanol flavor. Like if I want that, I'll drink a spirit. And in particular, I'll drink a cheap spirit. But I like the way they have this. This is a very nice, very enjoyable, mellow porter that, it happens to come in at 9.2% ABV. So if you have it in your area, I definitely recommend checking it out. Now, I don't know what the availability is, because like I said, this was something that I was given. And looking on their website, I did not see Parkview Porter available right now, but they did have another porter that looked very interesting. So I will say, Druid City Brewing Company, this is a really solid porter that, like if it was more available in my area, this would definitely be a nice go-to cold night beer. Especially since I'm assuming it's going to be a slightly lower price point than my favorite cold night beer, which is like a Bourbon County Stout. But yeah, once again, I'd like to thank Grumpy Grandpa for this particular beer. So far, everything he has sent me, and he sent me, I think, 2 of 6 different beers. Every one of them has been really interesting and really good. So, again, my compliments to Grumpy Grandpa. If you haven't checked out his channel, definitely check it out. It's a really interesting channel. If you like this video, hit that like button, subscribe. I'd love comments down in the comment section. And I'm gonna sit back and enjoy this slowly, because it is pretty heavy in the ABV. Anyway, folks, have a good week, and I will see you on, this is gonna come out on Thursday. I'll see you on Tuesday. Cheers.